We don't give a lot of love to fighting games on this series, so I thought we would today. And fighting games are some of the ultimate showings of gaming skill. But which ones are the best? Well, kicking off our list today, the best fighting games of all time is the original Soul Calibur. Now, technically, a sequel to Soul Edge from 1995, Soul Calibur was released in 1998 in arcades and then later ported to the Dreamcast as a launch title. Calibur was an extremely innovative game in the fighting genre, introducing things like 8-way movement and a weapon system. Today, the original Soul Calibur is remembered by many as the best in the entire series, and I think it's a great way to kick off this list. And you let me know in the comments, what is your best fighting game memory of all time? Next up is Skullgirls. Developed by Reverge Labs and released on the Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network in 2012. Skullgirls was a surprise hit for being a 2D fighter featuring a unique art style, tight combat, and beautiful animation. Since its original release, it has been re-released multiple times on more modern platforms and is still frequently seen at fighting game tournaments to this day. It will be going strong for years and years to come, and I think it deserves some love. I don't think I've ever put this game on any list in the past. At number 8, Guilty Gear XRD. This is one of those franchises that seems to always be just below the mainstream line, but it still has a massive following, and it's still undeniably one of the best fighting games on the market. It was originally released in Japanese arcades in 2014 before being ported to consoles and slowly getting some international exposure. Like many fighting games, it has been re-released a few times with slight changes to each version, but XRD is considered to be the best Guilty Gear to date, and it's still a pretty big esport in the fighting game world. You can't have a best fighting games list without Dragonball Fighters Z. Now, Dragonball fighting games can be hit or miss. While they're almost always featuring a unique flair to them, a common complaint has always been they're often pretty oppressive to new players. Dragonball fighting games kind of grew to have their own style of hybrid 2D and 3D combat and weird fighting mechanics. With Dragonball Fighters Z, Bandai Namco decided to make something with the Dragonball license that was more traditional, and the end result was arguably the best Dragonball fighter ever made. Fast, technical, and visually gorgeous. Dragonball Fighters Z is more than deserving of a spot on today's list. How about Tekken VII? Now, you usually don't see this, but a lot of people consider the latest Tekken game to be the best, and I'm not going to disagree with them today. With long-running franchises, it's usually the older installments that are most fondly remembered, but Tekken VII breaks the mold. Released in March of 2015, it's good. It took the established mechanics and characters of the series and blended it with improved visuals on the Unreal Engine 4 as well as new mechanics like the Power Crush and Rage to create an excellent fighting game that sold more than 3 million copies in less than a year. Cracking into the top 5 today, we have Street Fighter III. Okay, I know, there are seemingly dozens of versions of Street Fighter III like Second Impact, Third Strike, Double Impact, so on and so forth, but we're just going to lump them all into one entry because most of the Street Fighter community would agree that Street Fighter III is hands down one of the best. Originally released in '97, it took the foundation of Street Fighter II and built upon it with new characters, fighting systems, and smoother combat. And once again, a bunch of different versions of it. So which version of Street Fighter III do you think is the best? At number 4, we have Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Now, this game is admittedly pretty busted from a balance standpoint. It's over the top, and it's extremely fun. Released in arcades in 2000, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 managed to take the flashy and fast-paced combat of the previous game and mix it with a massive roster of fighters and some of the most impressive visuals in a fighting game to date, with crazy super moves and immersive backgrounds. Today, many people consider MVC 2 to be the best in the series, even though a few characters were admittedly pretty busted. At number 3, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now, the Smash series has had tons of installments. If you're looking for the most competitive one, it's undeniably Melee. Released for the GameCube in 2001, it was a platform fighter that didn't have you trying to run down the enemy's health with predetermined combos, but rather knocked them off the stage with a variety of singular moves that you had to string together on your own. The gameplay of Smash has remained the same since the beginning, but Melee was significantly faster and far more technical than any of the others. And to this day, over 17 years later, Melee is still one of the biggest fighting game esports in the entire world. At number 2, it's time for some MK love, Mortal Kombat 2. Now, the first Mortal Kombat was a solid game, and it was a pretty shocking one if you were a parent. The actual fighting definitely needed a little fine-tuning, though. This led to Midway creating the sequel and focusing in on the actual mechanics of the game, as well as expanding the roster and making the overall experience a lot smoother. Now, MK2 may not be the flashiest or the best looking game in the series, but many fans consider it to be the overall best in terms of balance, mechanics, and just an overall fun factor. Do you agree or do you disagree? And at number 1 today, we're going to go with Street Fighter II. Much like Street Fighter III, it seems like there are dozens of different versions of SF2, but we're just going to lump them all into one and just go with it. The fighting game genre as we know it today would look very different if we had never gotten Street Fighter II. The first Street Fighter was a very simple one-on-one fighter, but it didn't feature any of the flashy elements we've come to expect with current installments. However, it did plant the seed for Capcom to create a sequel with tons of additional characters, effects, combos, and much more. The end result was the unofficial birth of the fighting game genre and one of the most financially successful arcade games of all time. So if you ask me, Street Fighter II is more than deserving of the title of the greatest fighting game ever. My name is Chaos. This has been another episode of Gaming Facts by Gameology, and I'll see you soon.